coming full circle. Well, that just makes absolute perfect sense. So please welcome Kelly Brzezinski.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. It is an honor to be here. There's always a feeling when I'm up here speaking that comes over me. I could only describe it really as being exposed. And that is not a commentary on my shiny new haircut necessarily, but this idea of exposure really is, in many ways, what ministry is about to me. And it is my willingness to show up, to stand here and be seen. In all my flaws, in all my glory, so to speak. And I remember the first time that I ever felt this deep level of exposure, at least in the context of spirituality in any way, was many, many years ago as a child in church. I grew up in Oklahoma. My family attended what then was known as the Reorganized Latter-day Saint Church. And I loved being there. It was kind and warm and friendly. We had a minister named Walter Sonyer who, right now, I can feel the love that dripped off that man. He was just a beautiful, beautiful guy. Well, I was at church one Sunday morning for service, and Walter was not speaking. Somebody else spoke that day who was not from our center, not from our congregation, a guest speaker. And while I only met this person maybe once or twice ever, I still remember his name because he gave a talk that day that made such a big impact on me and gave me this deep feeling of exposure. The man's name was Herb Brannon, and he gave the talk about homosexuality. And his view that it is an abomination to God. Wow, I had never heard something like that in this little kind country church where I grew up. And I was maybe 12 or 13. This is 40 years ago or so. And I didn't really know what to do with this other than I wanted to dive under the pew in front of me and curl up in a ball and hide, because I was becoming aware of my own sexuality, and I just wanted to hide. Yet I knew I couldn't do something like that, because to do so would be to alert the people in my church that I might just be one of those abominations. And so I did all I knew to do as a little 12 or 13-year-old kid, and that was to sit there on that pew, perfectly silent, perfectly still, staring straight ahead, watching this man deliver his message to me, trying not to blink or flinch or do anything that would bring attention to myself. Sit there perfectly still right next to my grandmother who brought me that day. A little grandmotherly malpractice that morning, perhaps, but what I got at the end of that service, more than anything, what I got was the knowledge that I really no longer truly fit in this little circle where I had grown up. At the very least, I was no longer fully welcome or fully included in this circle. And so that's the title of my talk today, is Coming Full Circle. And the idea of this talk is that while I took much of that talk and internalized it and carried it with me for many, many years, I have stayed with it long enough to come full circle. And to the realization that while I found that talk incredibly painful, I now realize it was an incredible gift to me. Because I learned so much about ministry from that man and about the type of minister I want to be. One of the great gifts I received from that talk is the understanding that when we stand here on this stage and have the privilege of sharing a message with other people, that we wield a mighty power. Because when we do that, when we stand here and speak, sometimes people actually listen to what we have to say. Sometimes they take our words and carry them for a lifetime. And so I understand the importance of choosing my words wisely and making sure that no one and no child for certain is ever given the message that for being who you are unacceptable. That is unacceptable to me. I also come to understand from that man and his message something. There's a line from an old country song, and the line says that miracles appear in the strangest of places. Well, for me, that means this. If I stay with this long enough, if I look deeply enough or dig deeply enough, I will always find the silver lining. I will always find some measure of good in everything. There is no moment, there is no person that is worthless. Not the kid on that bench and not the man speaking. No one is worthless. At the very least, you get to provide a bad example from which someone can learn. Well, I took what I considered a very bad example that day, and from that I understand now that when you don't fit in, if you are excluded or if they can no longer make room for you in some little circle, it is very often because you are being called to something greater. I owe a big, big thank you to many people for my being here today at this point in the ministerial process. My husband, Alfie, is at the top of that list for supporting me through everything and in every way. And Alfie, the haircut is forgiven. I thank you for everything. Dr. James Mellon is at the top of that list as well for just for everything he's given us in this process, in this class. My first teacher, Dr. Maureen Hoyt, for sure. My friend, the now Dr. Joyce Bennett Hall. This class, who is beyond inspirational to me. The ladies and gentlemen of the panel that are taking us through this process this week. So many people to thank for my being here. And without question, I owe a deep debt of gratitude to Herb Brannon and the message I heard from him 40 years ago. Because when I understood that I no longer fit in this little tiny circle, I began a search for a bigger one. Because I required a circle that could make room not only for me, but that could accommodate the broad idea about what I thought about God. And I'm standing in that circle today. So I owe a deep debt of gratitude for that. That search that was started so many years ago brought me to understand a message from Ernest Holmes. And it's a very simple message, and it is a message that I will seek to carry forward and that I will tell to anyone who will listen. And this message describes this broader circle in which I find myself today. Ernest's words are these: in arms which are all-inclusive, divine love encompasses everything. In arms which are all-inclusive, divine love encompasses everything. That is what I have found as a result of the journey I was set off on so long ago. This divine love, this circle, encompasses you and me. It makes room for everyone and everything, including Herb Brannon and his message. And that, my friends, is coming full circle.